A very good morning, everyone. Today we will be talking about Unit 7 of our course AG Econ 102. Herein we will be talking about elasticity of demand. Earlier we did study what is demand, what is utility theory, and now we come up to what is elasticity of demand. Hello everyone, I am Dr. Sanjay, Assistant Professor in the Department of Agricultural Economics, CCSHAU, HSR. So let's begin. These are the contents we will be studying. What is elasticity of demand, which is also called as price elasticity of demand? What are the methods of its measurement? What affects the elasticity of demand? And two other types of elasticity of demand, income and cross elasticity. And what is the practical importance of this concept? So let's begin. See, we know the law of demand, which says price is inversely proportional to demand. That means when price of some goods increases, its demand generally decreases. Though there are some exceptions to this law, but generally this follows in most of the cases. But what we don't know is when the price increases or reduces, by how much quantity does the demand reduces. The law of demand does not say anything about the quantity of increase and decrease in price. Let's say the price increased by 5%, by how much percentage the quantity of demand will reduce. It doesn't say anything about it. This is what is important for policy makers. This is the important concept. Okay, so Alfred Marshall gave this concept of elasticity, which is also called as price elasticity of demand, because we are talking about the changes in price and resultant changes in demand. Okay, that's why it is called as price elasticity of demand. There is one very important assumptions. We are talking about by how, let's say the price changed by 5%, by how much quantity the by how much percentage the quantity will change. We are looking at these two things only, the relationship between price and quantity. We keep every other thing that might affect price and quantity demanded as constant. Let's say the price of something increased, and we in that time we our habits changed, something new came up, technology, some new products came up, so that will also affect the quantity demanded in time. But these such things are kept as constant. We will be looking at only the changes in price and the changes in quantity. This is called as ceteris paribus. Okay, so what is price elasticity of demand? It tells us the rate at which quantity demanded changes because of changes in price, or relative change is quantity demanded due to relative change in price. And mathematically we can write it as, it can also be written as like this and also like this. Percentage change in quantity demanded will be the numerator due to percentage change in price. How do we write it in a more elaborate way? Final quantity minus initial quantity divided by initial quantity. Here also final price after the change in price minus initial price, and again initial price. So this is the formula. As you can see, these things will cancel out, and the value that will come out, it can be in minus, it can be in plus, but we always consider it unitless. Okay, it is just a number for us. It does not have any unit like kg or centimeter or meter. Plus it is considered absolute. We don't consider these signs, don't consider the sign of the values that come up. Negative and positive, we don't consider it. We always consider it as a positive value. Alright, so let's talk about the types of elasticity of demand. There are generally 5 types of elasticities of demand. And you can see 5 types of diagrams have been shown here. We'll understand them one by one with a given example. Let's say for a given percentage change in price, let's say the price has increased by 5%. Definitely the quantity demanded is going to reduce, but in all the 5 cases quantity demanded will change differently. The price has increased by 5%. Let's see how much the quantity demanded changes, by how much percentage. Okay, so 1 2 3 4 5 cases. Price is on y-axis and quantity demanded is on x-axis. So let's say earlier the price was OP, now it has increased to OP1 and this gap is equal to 5%. Price has increased by 5%. So in this case, in the first case, at price OP, the quantity demanded was OQ, and also at price OP1, again the quantity demanded is same. So there is 0% change in quantity demanded. So this value will be 0. In the next case, there is 5% change in the price. However, the change in quantity demanded is, you can see certainly this gap, if this gap is 5%, this gap is certainly less than 5%. Let's say it is 3%. So this value is going to be less than 1. In the third case, when the price has increased by 5%, you can see the quantity demanded has also reduced by an equal amount, that is 5%. So this value will be 1. In the fourth case, when you can see the price has increased by 5%, it led to the quantity demanded being reduced by more than 5%. So let's say it reduced by 10%. So it is greater than 1. This value will always be greater than 1. But in the last case, this is a little typical. At OP price, when the demand curve is perfectly elastic, what it means is at a given price, any person can buy any quantity. That means at this fixed price, quantity supplied is indefinite and people can buy this much, this much, this much, this much, this much based on their incomes. Okay, so when the price has increased by 5%, they still can buy the quantity demanded, any quantity demanded, they can still buy the any quantity demanded. Okay, so the change in quantity demanded can be infinite. It can go this way also, this way also, nobody knows. That's why it is called as perfectly elastic. So this is infinite, the change in quantity demanded can be infinite, so this value will come out to be infinite. So in the first case, this type of demand curve is called as perfectly inelastic. Due to a percentage change in price, the quantity demanded does not change at all. In the second case, the demand curve is called as inelastic or relatively inelastic and its value is less than 1. And in this case, we can define it as when there is a percentage change in price, the quantity demanded, the percentage change in quantity demanded is lesser than the percentage change in price. In the third case, there is equal percentage change in price and resultant change in quantity. Okay, percentage change in quantity and percentage change in price will be equal. That's why this type of demand curve is called as unitary elastic and its value is equal to 1. The elasticity of this demand curve is equal to 1. In the fourth case, this type of demand curve is called as elastic or relatively elastic. Okay, and in this case, the percentage change in quantity demanded is more than the percentage change in price. Whether it be reduction in price or increase in price, the quantity demanded changes more than the percentage change in price. So in this case, it is called as relatively elastic and its value is greater than 1. As you can see it here the value comes out to be 2, which is definitely greater than 1. And in the fifth case, this type of demand curve is called as perfectly elastic. Due to a percentage change in price, that might be an increase or a decrease, the quantity demanded can change infinitely. So the value is equal to infinity. The range of price elasticity of demand changes from 0 to infinity. This is the range. Now let's talk about what are the methods of measurement of elasticity. Let's say we have a demand curve and we want to know about the elasticity. Let's say we have a demand curve and we want to know about the elasticity of this demand curve. Okay, how do we know it? Either we calculate it by the previous formula or we have these formulas as well. First method is arc elasticity of demand. When there are big changes in the price, there is a huge change in price and huge change in demand. Okay, the quantity demanded, price elasticity of demand between these two big changes can be known by the simple formula, that is final quantity minus initial quantity. Herein you can see the difference is here. Earlier there was the denominator here was initial quantity, but here it is final plus initial. Same comes for the price, price final minus price initial divided by price final plus price initial. Okay, generally this is also divided by 2, this denominator part, but this things cancel out, that's why I have written a smaller version here. So this is the arc elasticity method of measurement of demand when there are big changes in price and quantity demanded. That's when it is used. Okay. Second method is total expenditure method. Expenditure means how much you have spent. How do we know it? Price into quantity is equal to your expenditure. This is the amount you have spent on your purchase. If we see for changes in total expenditure that a person makes after there is a change in price on of the goods he is buying. Let's say there is a reduction in price and definitely the quantity demanded is going to increase. By how much it increases and by how much the expenditure increases now due to a reduction in 5% reduction in price, how much his expenditure increases, that will tell us about the elasticity of demand. Let's see this 5% reduction in price. Earlier the price was this, now the price is this, it has reduced. Earlier the quantity demanded was this one, let's say Q1. This at P1 price, quantity demanded was Q1. Now when the price has reduced to P2, the quantity demanded has increased to P2. As you can see, earlier the expenditure was this square and now the expenditure is this much. Okay, let me show it to you again. Earlier the expenditure was of this quantity, the yellow one, the yellow square. Okay, this much they spent at OP price. OQ1 was purchased, but now the expenditure is of this amount. As you can see, yellow and red portions are both the same. That means due to reduction in price, the expenditure did not change. Expenditure remained the same. So what can we call it? When the expenditure remains the same, the price elasticity, that this curve is considered as, this is not changing, wait a second please. Expenditure is same, the demand curve is unitary elastic, that means its elasticity is equal to 1. There is a lag in this tablet today, I don't know what is the problem. Let's say in the second case, when the price reduces by 5%, the quantity demanded has increased by more than 5%. As you can see, this was the expenditure earlier and now the expenditure is this much. As you can certainly see, the increase in expenditure here is this much and the reduction in expenditure here is this much. This portion is bigger than this, that means the expenditure has increased. That's why the demand curve is considered as elastic and its elasticity is greater than 1. Now in the third case, as you can see, at the earlier price expenditure made was this one, and now after the change in price the quantity demanded has reduced and expenditure made is this section. See, earlier it was this section and now it is the lower one. Earlier this much, and as you can clearly see the expenditure has reduced, that's why elasticity is less than 1 and it is called as inelastic demand curve. So this was the second method of measurement of elasticity. Let's move on to the third method of measurement of elasticity. Third method of measurement is point elasticity method. When there are the changes in price and quantity, we have a lot of data points. When price and changes in price and quantity are extremely small, in case of a linear demand curve, that means a straight line demand curve, the method of measurement is length of the, if at any point we want to know what is the elasticity of demand curve, what we need to do, let's say at we want to know the elasticity at point A. Below the point A, what is the length of the demand curve, and above the point A, what is the length of the demand curve? Length of the lower segment divided by the length of upper segment. Okay, at point A, you can see it is certainly the midpoint of this demand curve. So length will be, let's say, 10 centimeter divided by 10 centimeter, it is equal to 1. So the elasticity here is equal to unitary elastic. Elasticity here is equal to 1. If we go a little down, so the length of lower segment reduces, the numerator is small and the denominator is large, so the elasticity is less than 1. And at this point, at B it was less than 1, at C, as you can see, there is no length of lower segment, it is 0, and the length of upper segment, be it any 20 centimeter, it will be 0. At point C, the elasticity is equal to 0, which is called as perfectly inelastic. And at this point D, the length of lower segment, let's say 15 centimeter, and length of upper segment is this much, segment is 5 centimeter. It is certainly greater than 1, which is considered as elastic or relatively elastic. And at the top point E, the length of lower segment is 20 centimeter divided by 0. There is no length of upper segment, so it is infinite. This is called as perfectly elastic. So this is how you can know the elasticity at different points on the demand curve. When the demand curve is linear, this is important, keep in mind. This method is applicable in two cases: when the price changes in price and quantity are many, we have many data points, that's why we have this demand curve. Okay, and also when the demand curve is linear. When the demand curve is non-linear, we want to find out the elasticity at this point. What we will do, we will draw a tangent at that point. Let's say the tangent is AB and we will find its slope. Slope is equal to OA by OB. OA is this length and OB is this length. Let's say we want to find out the elasticity at this point. Draw a tangent, find its slope. This length divided by this length. Alright. So these are some of the methods how do we measure elasticity of demand. Now what are the things that determine the elasticity of demand? What things affect the elasticity of demand of something? Okay, let's say there are some goods which have many substitutes, many options are available, many options, close options are available, similar options. So demand for those type of products will be elastic. That means demand curve will be this a little flat. Its angle will be more than 45. Okay. Let's say a hawker. There are tens of hawkers coming. Hawker is a street hawker which is trying to sell you vegetables by moving here and there in the colony, or there are many sellers of vegetable in a market, vegetable market. So let's say if one of them increases the price of their vegetables by 5%, there are many other options for the consumers. They can go to the other ones. There is no need to go and get vegetables from an expensive hawker when you can just move and find another one who is selling the same vegetables at a cheaper price. So his quantity demanded will reduce by more than 5%. That's why when there are substitutes, many hawkers available, if one of them increases the price, his quantity demanded will reduce by more than the percentage increase in price. So when there are substitutes, the demand curve of those type of products is elastic. Cooking oils, we have soya oil, we have rice bran, we have refined, we have rapeseed and mustard oil, and some other types of oils. they have different prices. Let's say the prices of one of them increased by 5%. The prices of soya oil increased by 5%. People will easily reduce the demand for soya oil and shift to either rice bran, refined or rapeseed and mustard oil. They'll start using the other options. Why eat soya oil when you have other similar options? Okay, we are not talking about taste and preferences here. We are talking about price and quantity only. Remember this thing. Okay, so when there are many other options, so the quantity demanded of the soya oil will reduce by more than 5%. Okay, so this is how when there are many substitutes, the demand for those type of products is elastic. See, when the price increased by 5%, the quantity demanded reduces by more than 5%. This is what we mean by elastic demand. Tractors, many brands are there. Swaraj, Farm Track, Messi. Let's say we are talking about tractors of equal horsepower, 40 horsepower. Okay, and one of them increased the price deliberately when others are keeping their prices behavioral, they increase their price. So definitely people will shift to the others and its quantity demanded will reduce by more than what he has increased the price. Let's say he increased the price by 10%, his quantity demanded will reduce, let's say 20%. So their demand curve will be elastic. Same as with tea brands, many brands available, one of the brands increases the prices, people shift to others, his quantity demanded reduces a lot compared to the price increase. Types of goods, some goods which are necessities of our life, let's say food items, some important food items without which we cannot survive. This varies from region to region. Let's say in Haryana region, wheat flour, even if it's sorry, this is the type of demand curve for wheat flour. This was the price earlier and this is the quantity demanded. This is for rupees 20 per kg. Let's say if the price even increased to 25 per kg, the quantity demanded will reduce only by a very small amount. That's why the demand curve for necessities is relatively inelastic. Alright. Whereas for comforts and luxuries such as a well cushioned chair, an AC, TV, fridge, when the price increases by even a little amount, what people will do, let's say earlier price was this much, now the prices has increased, so earlier quantity was this much and new quantity will be reduced. So the demand curve for comforts and luxuries is relatively elastic. Alright, the angle is more than 45%, the angle is less than 45%. Okay. Then comes the slope. You can see it is quite standing in the slope, and this is quite flat. The number of uses of a commodity. If a commodity has many uses, its demand is more elastic, and vice versa. If it has only specific uses, its demand is less elastic or relatively inelastic. Okay. Let's talk about land leveler and a combined harvester. These things have only one use. Okay, that is land leveler will be used for land leveling and combined harvester will be used for harvesting some specific crops for which it has been designed. So let's imagine if the price of them has increased, there is no other option with the farmers. They will still have to use these things, so their quantity demanded will reduce, but only little. Price might have increased by 5%, the quantity demanded will reduce by only, let's say, 2% or 3%. So percentage change in quantity demanded 2% and percentage change in price is 5%. So it is definitely less than 1. Elasticity is less than 1. So the demand curve is relatively inelastic. Okay, just like this. Whereas in case of electricity, which has many uses for us, when it becomes cheap, more and more people will buy ACs and coolers because of the bill. The bill is already less. Bill will be coming less now because the electricity is cheap, and when it becomes expensive, people will stop using these kind of heavy appliances, such as, let's say, when it is cheap, you will buy such appliances which will run on electricity. You might even buy a stove which is running on electricity. Earlier you were cooking LPG. Okay, earlier you were using LPG. Now when the electricity has become cheap, now you have bought a stove which runs on electricity. Now even you are using a electric kettle. So when the its price reduces, their demand increases, and when the price of electricity per unit of electricity becomes expensive, you can start using LPG. You will not use this electric stove, and you will not use this electric kettle. You will not use your electric heater. So for these kind of things which have many uses, the elasticity of demand is high. The demand curve is relatively elastic. Complementarity between goods. If two goods are complementary, if two goods are used in fixed proportions, in combinations with each other, the demand for them will be less elastic. If the price of one of them increases or reduces, their quantity demanded will not be affected very much. It will not be affected. All right, it will be affected, but only a little, by a little amount. As you can see, fodder and concentrate is used in a fixed proportion per animal in dairies. If the price of the concentrate reduces, its quantity demanded is not going to increase very much. Its price reduced by 5%, let's say its quantity demanded increased by only 1%, because you cannot just substitute concentrate when it has become cheaper for any other thing. It will be used in a fixed proportion to the fodder. So the quantity demanded will remain more or less stable. That's why the demand curve for such products is relatively inelastic. Same is with pesticides. Let's say two pesticides A and B are used in fixed proportion. If the rate of A has increased, its quantity will not reduce. First of all, pesticides are important things. They are used in case of need only. Some people are using these things unnecessarily because of misinformation, but most of the times these things are, when they are used in combinations with each other for being effective against a particular pest or disease, even if the price changes, their quantity demanded will not reduce very much. So that's why for complementary type of goods, when there is complementary relationship between goods, okay, when these are used in fixed proportion, these are complementary type of goods. So these quantity demanded of them does not vary much with the change in price. Possibility of postponement. If there is a possibility of postponement of purchase of something, the demand for those type of products is elastic. Let's say if we can postpone a purchase, it makes the demand curve for that product elastic. We can buy that stuff when it becomes cheap. Let's say TV, gold, shares, when you are investing in a share market, property, cattle. The demand for these things, let's say, let's understand it by a graph. Let's say the prices of gold. This is the price of gold, and this is the quantity demanded of gold. When the price of gold, this demand curve, I didn't make it quite right. This was the price and this was the quantity demanded. All right. And when the price of it increases, we can postpone it. We do not need to buy gold at, this is kind of an investment and kind of conventional use also, but majority it is used for investment purposes. And when the gold becomes expensive, people will reduce the demand for gold, because they will try to buy it as cheap as possible, even if they have to buy it after 6 months. Same as with TVs and other kind of appliances and property. When the property becomes cheap only, when the prices of property has increased, its demand might reduce. Alright, we're talking about only the prices of property, and let's cancel out property here, because some other things are related to it. Generally, due to when the price of property increases, more and more people try to buy it because of investment purposes, and prospective profit. Let's say if I bought a property today, if its price is high, I might feel the price is going to increase further. That's why people, due to demonstration effect, try to buy property, because one is buying, second is also buying. This person has bought the property, its price is going to increase further. So there is kind of a speculation involved in case of property. Let's see cattle. The price of cattle has increased. People will wait to buy cattle. We will buy cattle after 6 months. We'll buy our buffalo after 6 months when the price is reduced. We will not buy right now. So whatever the thing, we can postpone its purchase. Its demand is more elastic. When the price increases, we can reduce our quantity demanded. For that, people can wait to purchase that thing when it becomes cheap. The second type of elasticity of demand is income elasticity of demand. It measures, earlier we measured the percentage change in quantity demanded due to percentage change in price. Now this thing has changed. It measures the responsiveness of demand, quantity demanded, due to changes in income and other things being constant. That is, price of the goods, price of its substitutes, taste and preferences, and other things are constant. Alright, this mathematically can be written as like this, and percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in income. Alright, so this thing I have not written quite well. Initial divided by initial into 100. So this is again very similar to price elasticity of demand. It measures the responsiveness of demand, that is percentage change in quantity demanded due to percentage change in income. Let's say if the income of a person increased by 5%, how much the quantity demanded of a particular good will increase or reduce. Cross elasticity of demand. It is defined as demand of a good is influenced by, it is defined as the ratio of change in quantity demanded of good X due to percentage change in price of good Y. And what is this X and Y? These two goods are related goods. These can either be substitutes or can be complements. See, cross elasticity of demand is calculated in the case of either substitutes or complements. We try to assess what is the change in quantity demanded of X when the price of the other good changes. Alright, so there are two types of relationships, substitutes or complements. Elasticity demand, cross elasticity of demand between X and Y is defined as percentage change in quantity demanded of X. As you can see, it is written first, so it comes as a numerator, due to percentage change in price of Y. You can easily write it as in this way. Alright. So in case of substitutes, as we know, if the price of a substitute reduces, people will buy that thing. And if let's say X and Y were substitutes, X is T brand 1 and Y is T brand 2. If the prices of this has reduced, its quantity demanded will increase, and the quantity demanded of this thing is going to reduce. Let's say the prices of this Y have reduced by 5%, the quantity demanded of T might have reduced by 10%. So this positive and negative will cancel out, and the value of cross elasticity of demand in case of substitutes will come out to be positive. This you have to remember. In case of price elasticity of demand, sign did not matter, but in case of cross elasticity of demand, sign does matter. Whereas in case of complements, let's say tea plus sugar, these things are consumed with each other. If the price of sugar has reduced by 5%, the quantity demanded of sugar will also increase. Alright, and as you know, the quantity demanded of sugar increases, the quantity demanded of tea which is used with it will also increase. Or we can see, let's take it in other way. This doesn't sound behavioral. Let's say we have the same two goods. Price of tea has reduced by 5%. The quantity demanded of tea will definitely increase by, let's say, 10%. Wait a second, please. uh, wait a second. Again, let's say there are two things, tea plus sugar. The price of tea has reduced by 5%. Its quantity demanded has increased by, let's say, 10%. If the quantity demanded of tea increases, definitely people will need sugar. The quantity demanded of sugar will also increase. Okay, so denominator is minus and the numerator is plus. It can be any value, so it will be negative. The cross elasticity of demand for complements is considered is negative, whereas in case of substitutes its value is positive. All right, now what is the practical importance of this concept of elasticity of demand? It is used in taxation. Taxation means tax is used by government to raise its income, raise the revenue which it will spend further on different things. Tax on inelastic demand goods. Inelastic means when the price changes, increases or decreases, its quantity demanded remains more or less the same. As you know, the prices of petrol and diesel have gone through the roof, but still their demand has not reduced very much. So on such kind of products, government can easily increase the taxes and raise the revenue. Okay, pricing decisions. Let's say there is a monopolist. Monopolist means a person who is the only supplier of a particular good. Elasticity of demand of his products is always inversely proportional to the price. What it means is, let's say the product he is selling has a demand curve that is elastic, okay, such as cars. Different generally monopolist does not do such kind of things. Let's try it once again. In case of a monopolist, it helps him to decide what kind of a demand curve he has, but this thing is not related. This is quite a bad example, but we will see it directly. When the demand curve of something is elastic, okay, so how the producer is going to decide its price? When bread and car brands, they have many substitutes. People have many options of bread and many options of car. So if one of the sellers increases the price of either bread or car by exorbitant amounts, so he knows, the seller knows that he will not be able to compete. So he will not be able to increase the price by a very large amount or even a very small amount. People, because people have many other options, so his pricing decisions, he knows, he must know what is the elasticity of demand for his product, based on which he will make his pricing decisions. If he is selling products that have elastic demand, he will not try to increase the prices. He will try to keep prices competent. Okay, so this is how elasticity will help him in his decision making. Let's say if the same producer is selling things which have inelastic demand. Inelastic demand example, there is HTBT cotton and glyphosate. These two things are used together, plus these things have an inelastic demand because farmer needs to sow these crop and he will be needing this weedicide along with this crop, because this is a recommendation from the company that has given these seeds and this crop. I'll be sharing your news article for the same, for these two things. So when the price of these things increases, farmer does not, he does not have any other option. He will have to buy these two things in any case. So the company knows that there are no other options with the farmer. He, even if we increase the price of either of them or both of them, still the demand for these products will remain the same, so they can easily increase the price. Okay, by knowing that the elasticity of demand of their products is inelastic, so they can increase the price because farmer does not have any other option. In case of vaccine also, you can see these days, even if the price of vaccine increases a lot, the demand will remain the same, more or less the same. Okay, so these people know, a producer generally knows how he should decide the price, at what price he should sell his things based on the elasticity of demand of the product he is selling. As you can see, when the demand curve is inelastic, that means elasticity of demand is less than 1, price can be kept high. When the elasticity of demand is greater than 1, price is to be kept low. This case and this comes from this case. Okay, advertisements are, the companies are spending a lot on advertisement just for the sake of making their demand curves inelastic. By showing you advertisements again and again, they create a psychological effects which makes you think these things are superior to the other things, these things are the only option. That's why the demand curves for those things become inelastic, and after a lot of advertisement they will definitely increase the price and demand will more or less remain the same. That's why they advertise, to earn more money by increasing the price. Determination of wages, labor. If the labor that is working in a factory knows that the demand curve for labor for that factory is elastic, or the demand for the labor in that factory is inelastic, based on their knowledge they can either go for a strike to increase their wages. Let's say if the demand for labor in a factory is inelastic, these are the wages and this is the quantity demanded of labor, and this is the inelastic demand curve. Even if the labor goes on a strike to increase their wages by a little amount, the quantity demanded will not reduce very much by the company. Alright, because the demand curve is inelastic. So it is, if the labor knows this thing, they can go for a wage hike, for a strike, for a wage hike. Otherwise, if the demand curve is elastic, like this is the wages, this is the quantity demand of labor. If they try to go for a strike and try and get to increase their wages, so the demand for labor will reduce a lot, and the laborers know it. If they went for a strike for increasing their wages, many of them will be kicked out. That's why there is no point in going for a strike. Public utilities, such as electricity supply, making hospitals, providing essential medications, are generally not given in the hands of private sector, though this is not the case of India, but generally in most of the developed countries such kind of public utilities are kept under the control of the government, so that these kind of things like electricity, which is of extreme importance to the countrymen, they are supplied by the government. Otherwise, if they are supplied by the private sector, they will run or supply electricity at higher prices by giving different excuses and earn a lot of money unnecessarily. These things are basic, and that's why the government needs to step in and provide these things at lower cost. Same thing, cotton seeds and stints. As you might have heard the news time a long time ago, when the prices of hard stints were fixed by the government, because these private sector hospitals were charging prices like more than 1 lakh rupees for a single stent, which was more or less costing different people only 8,000 rupees. The cost was 8,000 rupees, but it was being supplied at rupees more than 1 lakh rupees. So that's why the government had to step in, and after after even after leaving a decent margin for those stent, the government fixed the prices for each stent at around 16,000 rupees per stent. So you can see, for some important things like this and electricity and some other things, the price government needs to step in and provide those things. Otherwise, the private sector comes in and exploits the common man a lot. This is also very important and practical example. Poverty in plenty. That means when this is the, let's say, output of the previous year of wheat, or let's say not wheat, cucumber. There are cucumber farmers who got a price of rupees 20 per kg. This was the supply, this was the demand. The demand for agricultural products, remember, the demand for agricultural products is relatively inelastic. Okay, this was the quantity demanded. But when the price next year, when the supply next year, farmers had a bumper harvest, they had a lot of their quantity produced increased a lot because of good weather. The insect pest attack was very low. That's why they didn't need to spend on much on inputs, but still they got a good harvest and the supply increased from S to S1. What happened is, due to higher supply and inelastic demand, the price reduced to 15 rupees per kg. What happened from this? And but still the quantity demanded did increase due to reduced price. Many more people were able to buy these things. But what happened was, last year income for the farmers was this much. Okay, but this year the income was only this much. As you can see, the last year income when the supply was less, last year income when the supply was less is greater than the present year income when there was a bumper harvest. So this is called as poverty in plenty. Plenty means when there is a bumper harvest, the income of the farmers reduces. So that's why higher production, lesser price, lesser income. This is what I wanted to say. That's why some developed countries, what they have done is they have restricted the supply. They provide incentives to the farmer, subsidies to the farmer to stop this increase in supply. They fix the supply. So if they fix the supply, prices remain high and the income of the farmers remains higher. So let's see, this is unrestricted production. The supply curve I have shown here it to be perfectly inelastic for the sake of understanding. Let's say this was the unrestricted supply. This much was produced when the farmers had the option to produce any amount. Alright, so this much was the income, D, F, E, O. Without restriction, this was the income, but this was the restricted production. Government said you can supply only this much. That's, let's say they have restricted the number of hectares on which the crop can be cultivated. So this was the supply and the income was ABCO, and you can see ABCO is far greater than DFEO. So due to output restriction subsidy, the income of the farmers has increased a lot, and this is a common practice in most of the developed countries. This is what they are doing. They are giving subsidy per hectare. This concept of elasticity is also useful in terms of international trade making decisions. Let's say we are exporting goods, we are selling such kind of goods to other countries which have inelastic demand. That means that even if the price changes a lot, the quantity demanded will not change a lot. Let's say we are living in UAE, which is a which is a large exporter of petroleum products. The demand for those goods is elastic. UAE is selling, let's say, to Pakistan. UAE knows even if they increase the price for petroleum products, the demand for those products will not reduce a lot. They can change price, they can increase the prices a lot, and the quantity demanded will not reduce. So export of goods, when the goods exported are inelastic, that country knows they can charge a higher price. Okay, but when we are importing goods which have elastic demand, let's say electronic goods, in this case, let's say a mobile that is coming into India is costing 10,000 rupees and its quantity demanded is 1 lakh units and its demand is elastic. Our government can impose a levy, that means a tax on it, import tax on it, and make this phone price to be 12,000, 2,000 rupees tax has been imposed, and its demand reduces to a significant amount of, let's say, 75,000. thousand, because less and less people are able to afford it now, and this product falls behind in the competition with other products. So we when we know that what products we are importing are of elastic demand, we can ask the other country to reduce the price of their products. We can pay a lower price for them by saying them, we either you supply it for a lower price, or we will impose a duty on it, and which will lead to reduction in demand of your product. So if you want to keep selling your product in our country, kindly supply it at a lower price. So this was all about the elasticity of demand topic, and I hope to see you in the doubt classes. These are the two sources from where I have prepared all this information. If you want to read some more about the topic, you can go for the same. This is a MSc or PhD level book. So I would seriously suggest to make your own notes out of this presentation, out of this video lecture only. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the next lecture. Have a nice day.